Okay, so like we discussed in the last video, taking the square root of a number means that, for example, if you have the square root of 25, we want to find two numbers that multiply to give a number that multiplies by itself, to give 25. And in this case, 5 times 5 is 25. Therefore, the square root of 25 is equal to 5. Okay, that's pretty easy. That's quite straightforward. All right. We're going to be doing a lot of work with these over the next few lessons, over the whole unit actually. So it's really important that you have some strategies for how you're going to work with these. Okay. Now, one thing I really suggest that everybody does is at the beginning of any unit of work, anything that you're doing, make a list of the most common square roots. Okay, because that will make things a lot easier for you when you start to do harder work. Okay, we're going to do some harder ones today, and if you have that list, it's really easy to refer to. Okay, so what I always do is I make a list just of the squares. Okay, so 1 squared is equal to 1, 2 squared is equal to 4, 3 squared is equal to 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, 14 squared is 196, just the opposite of 169, and 15 squared is 225. Okay, this is the list of squares that are handy to know, okay, because these are the ones you're going to come across most frequently, and we expect you to be able to do these without a calculator. Remember that we discussed that some of your work during your quiz and your test will be without a calculator, so you do need to be able to do these without one. All right, now, it's pretty easy to do a straightforward square root like the square root of 25, okay? But sometimes we will have things where it's not just the square root of 25. We might give you something like the square root of 9 plus 16, okay? Now, some people think, oh, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16, so they might say square root of 9 plus the square root of 16, so we get 3 plus 4, which equals 7, okay? And this is not correct. You can't do it this way. Why is that? Okay, now, when we have the square root of 9 plus 16, what we really have is the square root of, in brackets, 9 plus 16. Okay, everything under the square root is actually between brackets, okay? We just don't write it because it's not necessary. It's the same as when we work with fractions, okay? So if you think of the order of operations, we have BIMDAS, B-I-M-D-A-S. B is for brackets. And that's always the first thing you try to do when you're simplifying something, okay? Now between the brackets here, we have 9 plus 16. Okay, so we actually have the square root of whatever 9 plus 16 is. Now, coincidentally, 9 plus 16 is 25. And what that means is we have the square root of 25, which is 5. And you can see that that's definitely not 7. All right, so if you have a square root where it's something plus something, you must do that first. Okay, that also goes for if you have a square under there or something else. All right, we expect you to be able to do these by yourself, okay? We expect you to be able to do these without a calculator, okay? So that's a fairly straightforward one. Let's try something a little bit different. So if we want 2 times the square root of 400, just for something different, plus 3 times the square root of 36. All right, now this is not too bad. You just need to think about firstly your order of operations. So B brackets, we don't have any. I indices. Actually, a square root is a type of index. We will talk about that a little bit later in another unit, or maybe later in this unit. But a square root is an index. So we actually do that second here. So we're keeping the 2 as it is, and then we're going to multiply that by, because remember there's really a secret multiplying here we don't write, the square root of 400. Now the square root of 400 is actually 20. It's a nice easy one. Okay, so we're going to have 2 times 20 plus 3 times the square root of 36, which is 6. 2 times 20 is 40, plus 3 times 6 is 18, so we get 58. Okay, so that's pretty nice. That's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. All right, another example that we can do is something like the square root of 8 squared. Okay, now 8 squared is 64, so we have the square root of 64. Okay, if we look at our list, let's go up, find 64. Oh, funny enough, that's 8. So our answer is going to be 8 here. Now this is something we will address a little bit more later on in the unit. Okay, so this is something we're going to come back to. It's not a coincidence that it's an 8. All right, now we also have some slightly harder ones. Okay, for example, we might have the negative square root of 196. Okay, now it's negative, so we know that our answer is going to be negative. Okay, the square root of 196 is 14, so we have negative 14 here. Now the opposite to this, or something that's a little bit different, is that we could have the square root of minus 196. Okay, the square root of negative 196. Now, we said before that your square root is two numbers that multiply by themselves, or a number that multiplies by itself to give that answer. Now, you cannot get a negative number by multiplying the same number by itself, because a positive times a positive gives a positive, and a negative times a negative gives a positive. Okay, so this is actually not possible. What we're going to write here for our answer is no real solution. Okay, and you'll see I wrote no real solution. There is actually a solution for the square root of a negative, but that's something you will do much later once you've got a bit more experience with all of this. Okay, this is something that we do in the 5th year. Okay, now the other type of question we might give you, which is a little harder but also quite interesting, is the square root of a fraction. So if we give you the square root of 36 divided by 25, okay, now that's pretty okay. The square root of 36 divided by 25, actually we can just take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. So it's the same as the square root of 36 divided by the square root of 25. Okay, the square root of 36 is 6, the square root of 25 is 5, so we have our answer. Now we can take that one step further and we can do something like the square root of 30 and 1/4. Okay, this looks a lot harder. All right, it's clear that we can't do this very easily ourselves. Okay, but that just means we need to make an extra step here first. So the first step we're going to make is we're going to turn 30 and 1/4 from a mixed numeral, which is what it currently is, it's a mix of a fraction and a number, into an improper fraction. Remember from year 1, an improper fraction means the bigger number is in the numerator instead of the denominator. So for this one, 30 times 4 is 120, plus the 1 on top gives us 121 over 4. This is something you guys should be able to do yourselves. You should have been doing this already in primary school, so hopefully you find that okay. If you don't, then please get some practice. You can ask me for some links for some practice if you're really stuck with it. Okay, now we have 121 over 4. We can write that as the square root of 121 over the square root of 4. Now 121, is that on our list? Yes, it is. 121 gives us 11 as the square root. Okay, so we have therefore 11 over the square root of 4, which you all know is 2. Okay, now you can see that these two are improper fractions. Both 6 over 5 have a bigger number in the numerator than the denominator. It's up to you if you convert them. I'm actually fine if you leave them like this, but if you want to convert them, you can write this as 1 1/5, and you can write this as 5 1/2. Okay, but I'm perfectly happy with them left like this. unless you're answering something where there's some sort of story or context, okay? If it's just find the square root, then it's fine like that, okay? And I definitely do not want to see any decimals. I like the answers to be in exact form as much as possible. Okay, these are the examples of what you need to be able to do for taking the square root. Please get some practice in. Make sure you think about your order of operations and what needs to be done first. But mostly, this is about as hard as it will get for now.